Edward Ball is an artist who says he's found himself artistically and feels he has arrived on the foundation steps of a journey that he has an all-consuming passion to push forward with. Edward has a burning desire to master his action style of painting that has roots set in music and popular culture. Although his love for experimentation with paint goes back some time now, all roads seem to have merged to give Edward a distinctive style of artwork, not only in image but also in application. The inspiration behind Edward's work is music, paint and colour. He reacts to the music by using the techniques of throwing, dripping, flicking, pouring and squashing paint to the sound and rhythm of the music. He uses the time span of a single track repeated, or an album, for very intense painting sessions. He is trying to encapsulate a particular piece of music in its own time frame. This is to give the work a sense of spontaneity, a sense of vibrancy and movement. The method of using spoons to paint with seems very unorthodox. Edward almost totally paints with them now. He has gained great control over them, giving him a wide array of techniques to deliver the paint on the canvas or perspex. Edward's work has a depth and richness that is produced by floating layers of wet paint on top of each other. This is done to give depth in the time period that the music allows him. Most of the time works will be achieved in one session, but if Edward feels the need for the paint to dry between layers, he will use several sessions with the same music. Work does not come like this overnight. Edward feels that all good work needs roots. Roots that evolve over time to a point where you feel a natural sense of direction and become as one with your tools, medium and techniques. Not only does he believe that about his journey, but that of what he paints too. The music that resonates with Edward, although very eclectic, has its roots in musical styles that have evolved and mutated over the years. Like the expressive music of drum and bass, breakbeat, hip-hop and trip-hop that have drawn on the musical styles of funk, jazz and roots, to mention a few.
I suppose music has always been at the base of my art. But I always have music playing in the background. It's a thing that I do, you know. To start inspired and listen to music, I've always been brought up on music, and I suppose that's in me really. I use music in two different ways really. I suppose the first way is that I have it on in the background anyway. If I'm doing certain pieces that aren't actually directly influenced by the music, you know, the music steadies my hand, it gets me into, you know, the vogue of painting. I went into a journey of, you know, going down the perspex, finding what could, you know, actually react with the perspex, how it would stay on, you know, what sort of different feels and techniques I'd use to actually get different styles on there. So that was a big road that I went down. So then I really wanted to try and bring that out in my work, you know, layers and what's behind that, and how I've got to move around to see that, you know, I want people to move around. And whether that's in layers of perspex or whether that's, you know, a layers of paint on the canvas, you know, because again on the canvas I like to bring sort of a structure into it, you know. I like to get it to craze and run and, you know, people feel it and all look at that. And so that's, you know, the layers is all about drawing people in, I think, to the artwork. decided to go down the sort of like open air performance route to actually show people how I construct these pieces and what's behind the construction of the pieces. And I think that's a really nice thing to do, you know, so people can just, you know, break it down and see actually where you're getting how you get in there and why you're actually doing it. Well, I think, you know, I have so many ideas. You know, I literally, you know, I have books and books that, you know, I'll just think of an idea of the night, switch the light on and start drawing my books to get those ideas down. I have so many ideas, but again, you have to really be careful from bouncing one to another. Again, I'm really feel that it's got to be a road, and I've got to bring all these ideas into the road. You know, the Perspex, for instance, has been a road. You know, it's slowly evolved, so therefore I feel it works. But I really would like to go down a multimedia route. I'd like to actually bring sound, music into my pieces. You know, I'd like to bring moving images into my pieces. You know, I'd like to use the Perspex as layers to bring these new mediums in, to hide them almost into layers. So you have to peer through and, you know, you have a moving image at the back of there. These are all complex ideas that I've got bouncing around. Right, I want to put some good music on, and yeah, I want to work in blues today. You know, it is pushing you, so it's a nice part of that, so I do enjoy that part.
Edward has constantly pushed forward and has not held back from developing new concepts. His trials in finding and binding new elements to his work seems to be a natural part of his progression. The early days of experimenting with different paint products and techniques took a leap forward when Edward merged a free-flowing painting style with his love for music. The consequences developed into a fast-action method of painting with the emphasis on natural movement and speed. Now we have seen him develop this method onto Perspex, the splitting of paint over multiple windowed layers. This has given a sculptural element and design to his work. Engineered Perspex bolted together with screw-in rod construction sits comfortably side by side with the organic feel of his paintwork. As well as working with the music of artists that Edward respects and finds creatively challenging, he is also embarking on creating his own music to paint to. Taking raw sound samples from everyday life and interesting subject matter, Edward, together with a collective of musicians, will create a soundscape of music and will play and record the soundscape live. This will give Edward creative control over the process and influences of the work from beginning to end. Not content with standing still, Edward aims to bond as many creative disciplines together as he can. His future vision is to blend and switch between the creative avenues of paint, music, video, photography, digital imaging, design and sculpture, with live visual displays to bear the whole creative process open for all to see. The future seems to be packed full of experimentation for Edward. With projects and plans underway, it will not be long before we see the next steps of Edward's journey. With so many roads, it will be interesting to see where his work takes him.